right, I think we're going to start with a walkthrough of our agenda. Is that right, Damon? So this is the agenda for today. We're just going to take a few minutes to try to get you to contribute to the chat and maybe talk to us a little bit about why you're here today, and then we're going to talk about the context and the background of AskClass. And since Damon is co-founder, Damon will be doing that. And then I'm going to talk briefly about how I discovered and started experiencing with the AskClass app. Damon's going to talk about how to actually go about setting up and using AskClass. And then each of us is going to talk about a case scenario, kind of some advice about how we have used AskClass and also how we've kind of tried to spark conversation and dialogue in our class settings. And then finally, we hope to leave plenty of time for Q&A. So this is our first question for all of you. We're hoping, first of all, you might tell us who you are in the chat window. And in addition, maybe tell us a little bit about why it is that you chose to come here today. What was it about the description, perhaps the name of today's workshop? What is something you're hoping to gain from today's workshop? And Damon, if you want to add anything to that, please do.
All right, so this is a question for all of us. What do we hope to get from this session? Well, I can start. I can
Go
start.
ahead.
Yeah. I want to share what I made and with my co-founder and how it led to making this product. So that's something that I really want to share. I'm just really grateful to be here with University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and just being able to share the impact that it had and a lot of joy that came out of it. So that's my purpose.
Nice. Looks like we're getting some nice comments. Julie says she's here to learn about ways to engage students. Certainly that's a definite theme of the AskClass app, and today, focus on engagement. Anna, eager to learn about new tools, especially tools that can promote engagement and in online courses, but also this tool today could be used in any course, online, on campus, as well as even outside of courses, in clubs and groups and things like that. Jason, always looking for new tools. Leanne, looking for innovative ways to spark discussions. And Alex, looking for a tool that's different. And that's kind of how I ended up coming up to this. So awesome. All right, so Damon, you want to move to the next section?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bob. I want to share the context and the background, why we made this, and what kind of impact it had so far. We went through the introduction, so we'll skip these slides. I think from a national level, what we're experiencing is this epidemic of loneliness and isolation. This is a report that came out last year, and it had a lot of ripple effects. And as I was thinking through this, it was not just, okay, here's a report from the government, but I was seeing it from the ground, seeing it from in the classrooms, what's going on among the students and what isolation and loneliness has been doing to my students. So that's at a national level, but more at a local level. Interestingly, Silicon Valley has a very different vibe. So for those of you who have been who have had a chance to come to Silicon Valley, it's very, it feels very isolated and it's very atomized, I would say. So there is this county right next door, San Mateo County and Daly City. They both announced that the loneliness as a public health crisis. It's an emergency. So that was earlier this year, and it was very shocking and profound. And from a demographic perspective, this is a research by Cigna. They researched 10,000 people in 2018, and they looked at the people or percent of population who were feeling lonely. And when we think about loneliness, we immediately imagine older generation. Okay, they don't have people visiting them, no one to talk to. So we immediately have that image of an older generation. But actually, when we ask, actually younger people felt more lonely. So this was 2018, way before the pandemic. 48% of people felt lonely. And in 2019, in just 1 year, in all aspects, the stats grew. And this probably is much higher as we talk today. This is from 2020 and 2018, and the stats say many people feel isolated from others. 44% of college students feel have depression symptoms, and 37% indicate severe anxiety. And beyond that, 15% had serious suicide ideation, and 2% have actually attempted suicide in the past year. So 8 out of 10 Gen Zers indicate that they are lonely, and this is very, very significant. But that's just from a stats standpoint, but it became very personal and real when an incident happened within my own class. So this is a real story. The names and the images are not real, but I would just call her Amy, and she missed class for a week and a half. And when I was walking out of the classroom, she was right next to me, so I just started a conversation. Amy, how is everything outside of my class? And she hesitated a little bit, so I knew something was going on. So I dug a little bit deeper into what's going on, and she mentioned that she attempted suicide on the week prior. And that really broke me, and just had this urgency and desire to really solve this problem. What's the meaning of all the things that I'm teaching them, all the framework, all the knowledge that I'm giving them when my own students are so lonely and depressed that they are attempting to end their life? So that led to researching deeper into why is this happening and what can I do to fix it. So when I think about the mechanism of what's going on is that there are increased barriers of conversation. So when there's an increased barrier of conversation, whether it's students or couples or even in the workplace, people don't want to talk if there's a barrier in conversation. So the starting conversation feels much harder. So it becomes even a higher barrier, and it's easier and it's comfortable to hide behind the screen. So as people are hiding behind the screen, whether through their phones or not really paying attention or having the laptop in front of them, then the conversation becomes even more rare. So now new people who are coming into the classroom, they see even more increased barriers of conversation. So it becomes a downward spiral. So that's what's going on in terms of the mechanism of loneliness. And we kind of experience this in our own lives too. So let's say if there is no conversation in a group, in a family setting, that could be the case. So if there's no conversations, that erodes trust, and now it becomes normal. Well, we just don't talk. I don't know the reason, but we just don't talk. And we narrate our own stories why we are not talking. And so that goes down in this pathway of division and hatred, and a lot of bad things could happen after that. So when I observe some people, not all, but some people in the classroom, they are signaling with earphones and hoodie and sunglasses and masks, and signaling silently, don't talk to me, especially when they're on their devices. So now the question is, regarding this mechanism, how can we remove the barriers from of conversations in the classroom? And there's a lot of research. I know maybe some of you are familiar with a lot of these books. David Brooks, How to Know a Person, Anxious Generation. These are recent books, but all of these people are saying that having a conversation and having more of a personal time of sharing stories is the pathway. And there's been a lot of podcasts and books, and there's a lot of conferences, professional development courses to go attend and learn. But we all know that professors just don't have the time to go there, learn, and then how can we apply that? That's the hard part. We take these professional courses, but applying it in our own classes, that's the most challenging part. So what we created is how to reduce that knowing and doing gap. So it's much easier for the professors to implement. So the second question that we want to solve is if these conversations lead to better relationships, what do relationships have to do with what and how we teach? So there's this book called The Good Life, and this is a summary of the study of the longest longitudinal study of happiness from Harvard. And their main point is two things. One is if you maintain good health, if you eat healthy and if you maintain exercise, that leads to a good life. So that's one thing. And the second thing is if you have good relationship, especially with the people around you, then you have a good life. So decades of research says health and relationships lead to a better life, a good life. I think there's a lot of already emphasis on good health, but there isn't a lot of emphasis and a pathway for better relationships. So as professors, as instructors, we have the opportunity to impact students on these aspects. And if we poll here, we're not going to poll here, but if we poll here, I want my students to not just come to class, not just being engaged. I know a lot of you mentioned about engagement, but it's beyond that, right? It's beyond just the engagement throughout the 14, 15 weeks, but it's also getting a good job and being happy. So it's actually all of the above. So how do we implement that? How do we implement good relationships in the classroom? There could be a lot of content, there could be a curriculum, there could be a Canvas course and so forth. But I think what's really powerful is the habit cycle. So when there's a cue and there's a routine and there's a reward mechanism, that really helps these mechanisms to run well. And when we think about it, a lot of these things are happening because the competition for attention has increased. So they are pouring billions of dollars into social media companies and gaming companies to draw attention to the screen. So we're fighting against this forces of distraction, especially in the classroom. So we have to have a better way, which is using the power of habit. So we use the cue and create a routine and reward them for those types of behavior. So I've been implementing this for about 3.5, almost 4 years now, and students come up to me over and over again, every single semester. They come up to me and say they felt much more comfortable and confident in their interviews because they practice talking to a new person in the classroom, and it feels much more comfortable. They never had this experience. So going into the interview is easier, during the interview is easier, and sometimes just getting the internship or the job became much easier for them. I ran some stats after a survey. Ran some surveys after the class is over, and these are the questions that I asked. The simple ritual, what did it do for them? And one of the questions that I asked them is, okay, how many friends did you make in this course? And 96% of students say they made a new friend. And on average, they're making 4.3 friends a semester. So if they're taking 5 classes, they're making 20 to 25, 30 students, 30 friends per semester. And if it's a 4-year program, if they can graduate in 4 years, that's going to be 200 students, 200 friends that they make throughout the semester. So when we think about the value of college, it's not just about the knowledge that they get, but the relationship and network that they build and the skills to build those relationships. So this really helps them on that perspective. And there's a lot of talk on the durable skills or the essential skills, 21st century skills, and oral communication is a big part of it. And how how can we help the students be more comfortable speaking up on their ideas, their thoughts, their perspectives in the classroom? And I've seen 97% are somewhat, at least somewhat comfortable speaking up in class. And I think this is a huge opportunity. There are a lot of education technology tools that you can express your thoughts by typing on chat or typing on your phone or pressing a button on your phone. That's all great. I think that's way better than not having it. But can we use the classroom opportunity to help students feel much more comfortable speaking up, at least in class, so that they feel comfortable speaking up in the meetings and corporate settings and everything that they do throughout their career. Team dynamics is also something that we value, and how can they work together with each other? And this is a very important thing that the employers are looking for. They're looking for team players. They're looking for people with good communication skills. And this is a question that I ask. Compared to other classes I've taken, the team dynamics in this group were better, and 95% say it was at least somewhat better, and many people, majority of the 7 was absolutely better. And I don't do anything special. It's just this simple ritual and this mechanism it has. I don't spend additional time trying to, hey guys, you have to have better team dynamics. I don't do that. It's just kind of natural, and that's the beauty of it. It's effective for the students, but also it's productive for the professor. So here are some of the things that students are saying after the class is over or after the semester is over. A student said, I really enjoy having the time to talk to people before the class gets started. Another student says, I enjoyed how everyone is interactive. So there's this inclination of being interactive with one another, getting to know each other before the class starts. There's also one feature that we have. We're selecting students at random, and that really takes the pressure off of having the people to volunteer. So many students, they come prepared, but raising their hand is one of the hardest things, especially if people from East Asian backgrounds like myself or Hispanic backgrounds. This hand raising is sometimes the hardest part. So we make it easier for them to overcome that barrier. So right now we have more than 1,000 instructors from 140 schools. I'm really thankful that quite a lot of professors are coming from UTK, and they're impacting tens of thousands of students every day or every week. And we consider ourselves as a salt of education. So we're not trying to replace the chef, in this case, the instructors. And there are many tools that seems like, that's a really good tool, but it undermines the work that I'm doing. So we're not replacing any of that. And we're not the tomahawk steak, which is the curriculum itself. There are a lot of tools that, okay, this is a curriculum creation tool, and sometimes it actually teaches the students. And I think there's a lot of good things there. But our positioning, our identity is the salt of education. So we're drawing the flavor. We're giving more flavor to the things that you're already doing, you, the teachers, the chef, and the curriculum, the teaching material that you have. So it's just a little bit of salt, and that really brings a joy and engagement in the classroom. So that's the context and the background of AskClass. And after Dr. Bob shares of how he discovered AskClass and experience in AskClass, I'll go through step by step on how to use AskClass. So Dr. Bob?
Awesome. So we can go to the next slide. So just before I talk a little bit about what's on this slide, the first thing I want to say is everything that Damon shared about the struggles that we see among our students for loneliness is validated by some data that was recently part of a thesis in the psych program. It was a student who, as part of her thesis, collected data on more than 931 of our undergraduates, and they found that 1 in 4 of our students report suicidal ideation in the past year. And that's pretty consistent with the National College Health Assessment that the American College Health Association does. The most recent 2023 data from fall of 2023 suggested that 28.1% of undergraduate students would test positive, screen positive for suicide, for suicidal ideation. And so the fact that we saw 1 in 4 among our undergraduates is pretty consistent. And it really was that kind of mindset because having come from a community college with kind of a different culture, very, very interactive culture, all small classes, when I came to the university, one of the first things I started to notice was many of our even first year students appeared lonely. I would see students arrive early in the class, but they would stay, focused on themselves. They really wouldn't talk much. And when I started to try to really spark a relationship with them and really get to know them, they would start to open up how hard it was for them to connect with new students, to make friends, and how in many of their classes they really had not made connections. And so it was in that context of really trying to create more opportunities intentionally to help students make friends and make connections that I was absolutely blown away one day when I was listening to a podcast, Lecture Breakers, which is a podcast that really focuses on how to take existing lectures that might be mostly talk and convert it to something that's more active, more engaging. And so in this particular podcast episode, Damon talked openly about AskClass. And it looked at first as a very, very simple tool. And as Damon said, a tool that basically makes it easy for you to help your students engage in conversation. And in fact, it could be as simple as just having the tool used at the beginning of the class while you're setting up so that students can have a little bit of support and guidance as they consider things they might be able to talk with peers about. So one of the things that really stands out to me is if we want students to learn, they have to do the thinking. And ultimately, if any of us want to do the thinking, want to speak out loud, we have to feel psychologically safe. We have to have opportunities to really see that that's encouraged by our curriculum, by the way we interact with our students, by the way we run our class. I will admit it can be extremely hard to have engagement online. And one of the things that I saw with AskClass was an opportunity for me to at least track engagement and to start to recognize and put a number on the kind of engagement I was having and to start using some of the AskClass tools to try to increase that engagement. And so ultimately, I've been very pleased. I'm still figuring out how to use it even more, but I've used it now for a few years. And what I see is this is an excellent, very affordable opportunity to try to do your part to spark conversation, to spark dialogue, to build community, to help students get comfortable talking more. And really what AskClass does for me is provide a tool, an affordance that makes it easy for me to start the process at the beginning of the semester and over time build a sense of community in most of my classes where students freely talk back and forth, where dialogue is actually a key part and where they're actually kind of waiting for the mini lectures to end so that they can actually continue dialogue with others. And I know Damon has even piloted and created some opportunities to use AskClass as a platform for even an entirely conversation-based, dialogue-based course. So to me, AskClass is an excellent tool for doing that. So that's a little bit about how I came to understand it. And I would encourage some of you to check out that podcast episode too for kind of a deep dive on the background of the course, of the app. Go ahead, Damon. These are some of the things that I incorporated with AskClass. And so in just a moment, I know Damon's going to start showing you AskClass. One of the things that I like to do is play music at the start of the class, but I found something as simple as having the icebreakers that are available in AskClass on the screen while music is playing Even that would give students the opportunity to start chatting with each other, to start sharing with each other, to start communicating with each other. I also told you I wanted to have a real number to try to track engagement. Who's talking? How often are they talking? And to what extent could I possibly improve the extent to which people are talking? I also find it's an easy tool for tracking who's showing up and who's not. So that's a really nice class, and it's a lot more seamless than trying to do that on Canvas. I can do that easily with my phone. I can have a TA track it, but it's really easy to track that. I also find it helpful to, you can use a feature in AskClass to generate your own pool of questions. And so one of the things I like to do is have students ask me anything anonymously, especially since it's a psych course. And that's when I get provocative stuff, but I can put all of their questions in a pool and they'll know that it's kind of random how I'm selecting them and talking about their responses. And so they feel really safe about that. I also do the same with discussion questions. So students are required to submit discussion questions, and I put those in a pool, and we kind of randomly choose questions to focus on in small groups and in whole class settings. And then finally, I've even used AskClass for retrieval practice. You could literally build questions, mostly recall questions, but sometimes you can be creative and you can use AskClass as a platform for integrating into your class session an opportunity for retrieval practice. So that's a little bit about how I started with AskClass and how I used it. And I can tell you right from the start, working with Damon has been outstanding. I've actually met with him and engineers when you have ideas for things that they can do differently. So I know that he cares deeply about trying to provide a product that really is helpful and spends a lot of time going out and trying to integrate with higher ed and really understand it. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Damon.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. It's really amazing to hear how you're using it and the impact that you're creating for the students. And so I'm just really excited to hear the real stories on how you use it in a different course context. So that's great. Thank you so much. All right, let's go into this next section in how to set up and use AskClass. So we don't have a lot of time, so we won't go into the very detailed version of onboarding and setup. But if you're interested, you can schedule a call with me so that I can walk you through more in detail, more of a personalized onboarding. So I'll share this link with you so that you can schedule the time with me if you need more time. But we're going to go through these several steps on how to set it up. Let's see. Okay, let me share once again. Share sound, here we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to create an account and verify that email, create a group or a class. We can add names with a CSV file, so we'll do that, and we'll go through several modules that we have. So let's start. So if you just click on this link, it will lead you to AskClass. So you can follow along as I go, and you can ask questions if I am going too fast. So I'll start with this green button, start for free, and then I am creating an account. So let me just log out. All right, so I will create an account, Damon Moon, and I will create an account with my fictitious email address. So once you type your name, email, and password, you should be able to get the email on email verification. So you can click on that link on your phone or from your email provider. waiting for the email to come through. So once you click on this orange button, you should receive an email for verification. So once you click on that, then you should be able to see that email has been confirmed. So just press reload, and now you have the email verified. After that, you can go to manage groups. So group is a class. So if you can click on the manage groups, there's already a sample group that is created, but let's just use and add a group. Let's create a new group. So if you have your student list, this is how you can create a new class. So you can upload a CSV file or copy and paste. In this scenario, we can just quickly use a CSV file. So this CSV file is something that you can download from your LMS. In this case, I downloaded and created a CSV file, a fictitious CSV file, which I'll share with you. So these are all fake names, but this is something that you can download. So let's say I downloaded that. All I need to do is upload the CSV file from where I downloaded. So I'm clicking on my downloaded file, and I have all of the students imported immediately. There you go. So this is how we can import all of the students' names very quickly from the LMS. The key point that we're doing here is mainly two things. One is we want the students to talk. So we have eliminated all the opportunities for the students to set up on their own account, sign up with their email, and I know how that could go wrong. And in every case that I did with other platforms, there's always 3 or 4 people saying that it doesn't work. I can't log in. I lost my password. And I felt like I was part of the help desk of this company, not a teacher. So I made it so simple so that the teacher all the teacher has to do is just import all the names, and the students doesn't have to do anything. So that's one thing, for the students to talk. And the second part is that the students don't have to sign up. They don't have to use their device. So those are the two design process that we use. So after that, now we have the demo class for UTK. So I can start with the icebreaker. So if I start with icebreaker, there are a lot of categories. So for example, this is a question that I used yesterday, gratitude. What are some daily practices or rituals that you engage to cultivate a sense of gratitude? So when I'm starting my class, I ask the students to come 5 minutes before the class starts, and I would start with music. You all hear the music? So as the students are walking into the classroom, whether it's an in-person classroom or an online Zoom classroom, I always start with the class types of questions. So these are questions that are not necessarily tied to the course material, but it gives them the opportunity to talk. And of course, there are no right or wrong answers. So students can express themselves, they can hear what others are doing and learn from one another. So this is a really fun practice, and it creates an environment of that connection. This type of music is also researched. What type of music, in terms of the instruments, in terms of speed, the melody and all that, is beneficial for discussion. So we curated number of songs for maximizing discussions. So after that, what we can do is we can go here and select a random person. So they're under this menu, there is a random person selector. So in this case, Malik is selected. So I can ask Malik, what daily practices or rituals do you engage to cultivate a sense of gratitude? So Malik could say a lot of good things. So as Malik is saying, I can give points by clicking on the plus icon. So this is the cycle of cue, action, and rewards cycle that we just went over. So what this does, this icebreaker does, is for every class, not just the first day of class, but for every class, they are building this habit of connections. And so this goes throughout, this ethos goes throughout the semester. And in the in-person classes, what's even more beneficial is that I ask the students all stand up, so nobody is sitting down. So this flexibility and the fluidity of students walking around and asking each other these questions, it's a very, very different environment compared to everyone sitting down and scrolling through TikTok before the class starts. So that's the icebreaker ritual. I can also take attendance. This is an attendance module. So for the attendance, there are many different ways to take attendance. In San Jose State, we're not allowed to put attendance into grades. So this is the reason why it evolved in this way. So this is all optional. So what I can do is I can just call on their names, Aliyah, and just click on their names. Amara, Anaya. If Anaya is not here, I can just double click and there's a red mark next to it. So this is a very easy way to check their names. And what this does is it does two things. One, it helps me understand the students' names because it's a repetition. As I read their student's name, I'm looking at their face and having that reinforcement from my end. And what that does to the students is that now the students know that the instructor remembers their names. So when it comes to, oh, maybe I should skip class, that level of disengagement is prevented. So that is the attendance module. And what this does is if you go back to the home screen, you can also give points. So as you can see, Anaya and Zuri were absent, so they're grayed out in this screen. So let's say Ethan raises his hand and speaks up, I can give Ethan points. If Jackson does the same, I can give him points. So I can give points based on their interaction, their participation in the classroom. And this is more of a side note. What this also does, we have app on the phone. So everything that you see on the screen here could also be available on the phone. So it doesn't really tether me to the podium. It doesn't tether me to the computer that I'm using. I can just walk around with the phone and ask questions. Next thing is the pick a person. So we already chose Malik. So the next person that I'm going to choose, actually there's 22 people. So one person already went. There's 21 more people. So it's going through like stack of cards. So the next person is going to be selected is going to be Priya. So I would ask Priya for a discussion question related to the content, and I can give points based on her answers. The beautiful thing is that once I start selecting these students, well, actually, what that does is it removes a burden for me. Okay, did Priya speak up last week? Maybe I shouldn't pick her. Maybe I should pick Malik. Oh, no, she just spoke up. So I don't have to worry anything about that. I can just rely on the system to pick the random person. And what that does is it helps the students participate. So as I select 3 or 4 people, now a lot of hands go up. Oh, for that answer, Priya got 3 points? I have a better answer. So there's a reinforcement of that participation desire. So when that happens, all you need to do is just scroll down and you see all of the names here. People who already spoke up are in black. People who are absent are grayed out. People who haven't spoke up, let's say Jackson is still in this gray box here. So if Jackson raises his hand, I can just click on Jackson and give the points to Jackson based on the quality of the response. So it's very flexible and it really engages the students. So just a level of back and forth and discussion, it's absolutely amazing. And sometimes you'll find yourself running out of time because there's so much interaction and sharing that is going on. So last but not least, I want to share the discuss the topic. And this is where you can create your own discussion sets. So you can create a new set. I'm just going to say this is for a demo. And you can create your own questions. So imagine that this is a question that you have for your students that is customized for your class. You can launch this and create your own set. The icebreaker set is already given, it's for everybody, but this is your own set. So what that does is it gives you the same exact interface with a custom question, and you have a discussion time. So, okay, we're gonna use 15 minutes talking about this, and we'll go through these questions on these students. So that is the custom discussion set and a quick walkthrough of AskClass. Now, with that, let me hand it over to Dr. Bob for the use case scenario 1.
All right. So I want to share a little bit about some of the kind of ways I benefited from AskClass that go beyond even using AskClass. So one of the biggest benefits to me of AskClass was you got somebody intentionally trying to create an application that will help our students communicate and that will help us track that communication and inspire that communication. And so one of the things that certainly has been helpful is trying to build in some icebreakers at the very start of class, particularly while students are starting to arrive. And so for my classes, whether they be synchronous online or on campus, I like to start each class with some music and some icebreaker questions and try to get students to respond to those questions and talk to each other. And what I find is over time, more and more students feel comfortable arriving early and enjoy kind of the beginning of class and the opportunity to get to know students. And so to me, the learning, it's not really directly relevant to the content of the course. It certainly inspires them to start engaging. And to me, the more they feel part of a community and feel safe talking, the more likely the class is going to have this really comfortable community vibe. And it's going to make learning of everything much easier. The next thing is one of the things that this app inspired me to do, and you could certainly use AskClass for this, is I like to capture muddy points and questions from students anonymously so that they feel really safe sharing where they're struggling and sharing how they're personally connecting with some of the material and what questions they might have, but they feel really uncomfortable connecting to themselves. And so a simple, easy way for me to do that is to pass out 3x5 cards, let them know they don't need to put their names on the cards. Basically, they simply put what they are finding muddy and what they have as questions on those cards. And then I input those into AskClass as a special discussion group of questions. And I'm able to kind of randomly walk through those. And it sparks a lot of conversations because typically what the students are struggling with and some of their personal questions are things that other people really wanted to ask but didn't. The third thing is something that I have been doing for quite a while, something that I know some of my colleagues have started doing too, is I like to use 5x8 index cards and use them in every class session I possibly can, and ask students on the front side of the card that is blank, to capture, first of all, a quotation from the learning resources, from whatever it was that they were asked to consume before class, whether it be a reading in a chapter or watching a media piece or other activities. So they capture a quotation or two that really stood out to them as insightful, as provocative. And then they also identify at least one open-ended question they'd like to talk with someone else in class about, or they'd like me to deal with. And then on the back side of the card, the lined side of the 5x8 card, they write in their reflections on the learning, their reactions to the learning. And so the way those cards are put into practice is every class session, students get used to arriving to class with those completed 5x8 cards. They always are asked to leave about half of the front of the card blank, and they begin the class with an opportunity for one-on-one dialogue with someone else about their reflections, about their question, about their quotes. And it's in that blank part that students have to give me some notes so that I really kind of can eavesdrop a little into the nature of that dialogue. And then usually when they're done, that takes usually the first 10 to 15 minutes of every class. Usually there are some really rich questions that come from the reading, come from the assigned media that we can discuss in class. And so one of the cool thing is I feel it feels less necessary for me to talk through everything that they did when I can really kind of have a dialogue with them about what they're understanding, how they're reacting, what their questions are, things like that. And then finally, the thing that I really like is just the ability to have a number to help track engagement. So you can easily have your cell phone app up with the list of everybody, and there's an easy function for giving students points. And if you want to basically recognize dialogue, recognize contributions, recognize people who are trying to promote engagement, and then encourage that and incentivize that with points, ultimately to me, it feels a lot fairer. It feels like I'm actually kind of, in a way, a little bit kind of like B.F. Skinner, monitoring behaviors and trying to give feedback and hopefully reinforce those. But what I find is it works. And in some cases, it can work so well that you could start to see that you've built something where the AskClass still is helpful, but ultimately they're eager for dialogue. And so to me, this helps you, especially in the first several weeks of the class, start that climate, start building that sense of community. And then the tool itself just becomes something that students recognize as one of the platforms for sparking dialogue, sparking engagement, and promoting engagement in the class. So those are a little bit of things about how I've come to use AskClass, as well as how I've come to even go beyond AskClass and start building learning activities that kind of take the AskClass philosophy into mind. Damon, I know you got a few things you want to share.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bob. I tend to get a lot of questions on how many points should I give as an instructor? And that's totally dependent upon you. So depending on the size of the class and also the duration of the class, and it's also dependent on your philosophy of teaching. Some professors tend to focus on, okay, I want everyone to speak up. So everyone has an equal opportunity to speak up. So they will go through the entire list by the random person selector. And some professors just have only the volunteers participate. So these are all based on how many points that you should give. The way that I do it is that I give lower points in the beginning, and just like in the economy, there is inflation. So towards the end, every time that they speak up, it's 5 points or 6 points. So they don't lose the hope of finishing with a high grade. Oh yeah, we talked about the random person selector and the volunteer raise hand, so we'll skip this section. So our main point here is we want the students to talk more, because that leads to connections, relationships, that leads to better learning and better outcomes. So how do we do that? We transform lectures into engaging discussions. So thank you all for listening and your attention.